Welcome to the Altruistic Libertarian, advocate for a genuinely free society. I'm Anthony Wheeler, and today we continue the metaphysical basis for a genuinely free society, Part 3. Humans crave meaning and purpose, and fill this void in countless ways, from religion, to art, to family, to community, to ideologies. They develop sophisticated constructs with many layered levels, such as Orthodox Judaism. Certainties arise from the mouths of prophets, such as Muhammad. Commitments are made to holy trinities, to nation states, to national pastimes. And none of these are strictly wrong, or necessarily harmful, or invalid. While we possess no particular reason to believe that supernatural entities exist, it's impossible to be certain. It's possible, though unlikely in any particular case, that the Christians, or Jews, or Muslims, or Buddhists, or Hindus, or artists, or Baptists, or Rastafarians have it just right. But then for believers, it makes little difference if any particular belief is based on empirical fact, or whether their belief system rests on firm rational grounds. The spiritual value remains, regardless of proof. In many cases, the appeal to such spiritual beliefs lies in the completely uncertain nature of the details. Clarity would destroy. Outside the realm of science, speculative religion abounds. While nothing proves the validity of one religion over another, it's also technically impossible to disprove them as well. The statement, God exists, is unscientific in that it cannot be falsified because it is impossible to prove that God doesn't exist. On the other hand, the statement, God doesn't exist, can be falsified by discovering the existence of a being that fits a particular description. If God came to earth and revealed his presence and behaved in an omniscient and omnipotent manner and met the criteria for existence that most of us would accept, then we could rationally agree that such a God exists. Believers come in many forms, many of them embracing revealed religion as if it were unmitigated truth. Others take a conscious leap of faith, accepting the difference between a rational, demonstrated world and one blessed with spiritual value. The human need for meaning, community, values, and moral guidance can be found in these systems of faith, just the thing that many find generally lacking in modern technical civilization. Within the realms of a particular faith, the context for spiritual truth is created and serves as absolute truth for the believers. Given the value that many people find in their faith, and the general good that can abound from communities of faith, all forms of spiritual belief and practice would be welcomed and encouraged within a genuinely free society, as long as they adhere to the basic legal structure and don't conduct violent harm against anyone. So human sacrifice and genital mutilation would be outlawed, for instance, as would the enslavement of women. People couldn't be stoned to death for adultery or have their hands severed for stealing, that kind of thing. But every other form of peaceful worship would be respected and supported within a genuinely free society. The Rastafarians could smoke all the weed they want. Humans require a sense of certainty in order to act. For instance, they must be sure the light is green before they go. Understand that if they jump off a tall building, they will likely fall and die. Plan on the sun rising the next day so they can go to work. That electing one person over another will improve the country. This is all to the good. Beyond the day-to-day, many people develop a system of beliefs that over time seem infallible. They are certain their God exists, that their country is sacred, that certain acts are immoral and should never take place, that certain forms of change are disruptive and harmful, that particular peoples are bad, that selfishness is wrong. Human nature puts the individual at the center of their own universe and provides internal guidance to behave in ways beneficial to that self. While some people argue that this aspect of human nature, a concern primarily for the self, damages society, a prominent biologist argues just the opposite. Quote, "Human beings appear to be sufficiently selfish and calculating to be capable of indefinitely greater harmony and social homeostasis." This statement is not self-contradictory. True selfishness if obedient to the other constraints of mammalian biology, is the key to a more nearly perfect social contract." Unquote. Wilson's argument is interesting and subtle. To continue, quote, "My optimism is based on evidence concerning the nature of tribalism and ethnicity. If altruism were rigidly unilateral, kin and ethnic ties would be maintained with commensurate tenacity. The lines of allegiance, being difficult or impossible to break, would become progressively tangled until cultural change was halted in their snarl." Unquote. In other words, if we cared exclusively about ourselves and our immediate kin, social structures larger than a tribe would be impossible. Cities, let alone nation-states, would never materialize, as people in various tribes or kin groups would refuse to trust each other or respect others as socially equal. Cooperation among different tribes would be rare and suspenseful. As it stands, modern society continues to struggle with racism, nationalism, and religious war. Despite these challenges, humans have demonstrated the ability to overcome these tribal differences and build lasting civilizations. If Wilson is correct, a decent balance of altruism and selfishness has been the key to the development of modern, cooperative, and relatively peaceful society. In addition to the challenges that kinship and tribalism bring to a cohesive society, to expect people to consistently act on behalf of others or to maintain an awareness of what others genuinely need is simply too much to ask. It is common for political theorists to envision a society where people behave exclusively with others in mind. They expect people to become equal in some manner and live together in untested harmony. George Orwell provides an example of such expectations when he writes, quote, "The good society is one in which human beings are equal and in which they cooperate with one another willingly and not because of fear or economic compulsion. This is what socialists, communists, and anarchists in their different ways are aiming at." Unquote. In point of fact, humans are not equal in any way, and it would require brutal coercion to make them even partially so. As for cooperating willingly, only a genuinely free society ensures willing cooperation absent fear and compulsion. Quote, "Neither love nor charity nor any other sympathetic sentiments but rightly understood selfishness is what originally impelled man to adjust himself to the requirements of society, to respect the rights and freedoms of his fellow men, and to substitute peaceful collaboration for enmity and conflict." Unquote. Individual humans live within a specific cultural surround, one that provides their ultimate frame of reference. They learn language, how to interpret social behavior, what to do in order to live. As they age, they gain more knowledge of their environment and develop more sophisticated ways to navigate the world. The range of possible developmental paths is almost as large as the number of humans on Earth, given the uniqueness of each person's DNA and the contingent circumstances of their birth and later life. It is a constant challenge for each person to establish commonalities with other people, to find a shared perspective that allows for basic communication and peaceful coexistence. Even among families, misunderstanding occurs on a regular basis. We simply don't see the world as our children do, let alone two people born in different cultures and raised with different language and customs. Basic goodwill and intellectual effort is required for any two people to engage in a meaningful and mutually understandable way. This becomes magnitudes more difficult when the topic becomes complex. Ensuring our collective consciousness remain compatible presents a constant challenge. We are often wired and raised with differing protocols, requiring frequent and sometimes intense mediation. Everybody rules as the master and serves as a slave within their own universe, one based indirectly on the world. A big plastic opaque bubble of sorts, a complex and phase-shifting realm that no one else can enter. In order to share meaning with another human, a gesture of some kind, a touch, a word, must be extended with sufficient power to penetrate another's bubbles. Due to the various obstacles encountered during the extension, anything that penetrates necessarily differs from the original gesture, sometimes differs so much that it wouldn't be recognized by the originator. Even so, it's possible that the gesture generates some form of understanding within the new bubble. If that understanding resembles what was originally intended, meaning has successfully passed from one person to another. All too often, however, the gesture gets mistranslated and misunderstanding ensues, or the gesture arrives in a completely incomprehensible state, causing confusion. Often enough, the original gesture goes entirely unnoticed, never having negotiated the other person's boundary, having bounced off the rim, so to say, and lost in the swirling myriad of unperceived action that surrounds a person every moment. If you take any group of people randomly selected from around the world and compare their certainties, differences would be pronounced. Consensus about the most important things will never be realized. Reconciliation between starkly opposing views may never occur. Differences between people may be mitigated but never resolved. Given these manifest differences between individuals, attempting to fit everyone within a predefined cultural matrix that allowed only certain types would require violent coercion. Humans exist in many different forms. We differ in almost every way. Infinite futures stand before us, countless possible paths. To limit the possibility seems unkind. To assert one path over the infinitude, totalitarian. Universals simply don't exist, with one possible exception. Some people prefer pursuing pleasure, others acquiring wealth, another physical health, or a wholesome family, perhaps numerous friends, advanced scholarship, public renown, ready comfort, spiritual enlightenment, daily excitement, or redemption. More likely, individuals seek a balance of values, a perpetual striving for the elusive optimum. Identifying every possible combination in every personal situation would be a daunting task for any society. We struggle doing it just for ourselves. But there is something that everyone could do without, and that would be needless, unjustified, and unwanted pain, suffering, or death. Most people would agree that a world without polio and smallpox is a better place. Every victim of the Holocaust would have been better off without having suffered through it. Anyone raped, tortured, or killed by a brutal regime would rather have avoided that particular fate. Hurricanes kill or injure fewer people than ever, thanks to improved forecasting, universally considered a good thing. Most civilized places no longer fear wild animals or ruthless warlords. Sometimes nature inflicts unavoidable mortal damage to humanity. Volcanoes erupt, earthquakes topple buildings, rivers flood. Much is done to mitigate the damage, to prepare communities for disaster, yet sometimes not enough is done, not always in time. Ultimately, we do what we can to minimize the risk, to provide relief when all else fails. The world will probably never be perfectly safe for humans, given its geological nature. The intention here is not to eliminate all pain and suffering from the human experience. When a person suffers pain getting his teeth fixed, or a sexual sadist delivers pain to their willing masochistic partner, that constitutes wanted and acceptable pain and suffering. When someone breaks their leg playing football, climbing a mountain, or skiing down a hill, we consider that a necessary risk for those who engage in such activities. But far too many humans suffer pain and death through deliberate evil acts of unmitigated violence. The killing fields in Cambodia. The Hutus slaughtering Tutsi in Rwanda. Their dirty war in Argentina. Terror bombing in World War II. The abduction and murder of Emmett Till. The femicides in Ciudad Juarez. The list goes on endlessly. In this view of evil, humans are entirely responsible, as an evil act is one committed deliberately by a person that knowingly results directly in unwanted, unnecessary, and unjustified pain, suffering, and or death to another human. The greater the pain, suffering, and death caused by the deliberately unwanted, unnecessary, and unjustified act, the greater the evil. So if we could assert one simple moral imperative, it would be, do no evil. And the corollary, all else is permitted. That concludes our show for today. In the next episode, we conclude our series on the metaphysical basis for a generally free society. Until then, Peace.